Thank you.
Resuming debate, reprise de débat, the honourable member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to discuss the plight of the Rohingya people and condemn the atrocities which they continue to be subjected. My remarks today will echo those of my colleagues as we stand unanimous in condemning the persecution of the Rohingya in Rakhine State and along the border of the Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. The Rohingya are often described as the world's most persecuted minority. Despite having inhabited Myanmar for centuries, they are not recognized as one of the country's 135 official ethnic groups. Following the 1963 military coup in Myanmar, all citizens were required to obtain national registration cards according to Al Jazeera. However, the Rohingya were only allowed to obtain foreign identity cards, furthering the othering of them. This move did not just other the Rohingya, it had significant impact on them in the form of limiting job and educational opportunities they could pursue and obtain. Since 1982, the Rohingya have also been denied citizenship in Myanmar. Madam Speaker, I want to stress this denial of citizenship renders them stateless. Arising out of the 1982 citizenship law are other basic human rights that continue to be denied to the Rohingyas. Their rights to study, to work, to travel, to marry, practice their religion, and access to health services have been restricted. Furthermore, the Rohingya face significant barriers if they choose to vote and other limitations if they want to pursue fields such as medicine, law, or running for office. These basic rights have long been denied to the Rohingya, whose misery is now compounded by being subject to the waves of violence and acts of ethnic cleansing that have erupted before the most recently since October 9, 2016. Over the past year, myself and colleagues who sit on the Subcommittee of International Human Rights have worked diligently on the Rohingya file. I would like to acknowledge the honourable member from Mississauga, Erin Mills, for the motion she tabled in April 2016 to study the plight of the Rohingya in Myanmar. The subcommittee adopted the motion and we conducted a detailed study session on the issues. Arising out of this study, the committee submitted a report to the House entitled Sentenced to a Slow Demise, the plight of the Myanmar Rohingyas minority, which made recommendations to the government, to which the government responded in full and very positively. In addition, in November 2016, the Subcommittee of International Human Rights released a joint statement expressing alarm over the response by security forces to violence in the Mungudwa district, which had begun in October 2016. Recently, in response to another outbreak of violence in early 2017, the subcommittee held an emergency meeting with experts on the issue. We heard evidence from the Burma Task Force and Rohingya Association of Canada. These witnesses appeared again last week in the subcommittee to provide an update on the human rights situation of the Rohingyas. Despite the measures taken to condemn the violence in Myanmar against the Rohingya and humanitarian assistance provided to assist the region, Canada continues to have a great concern regarding the situation of the Rohingya. Last week, the Subcommittee on International Human Rights heard from Anwar Arkhine, who is the president of the Rohingya Association of Canada. Mr. Arkani's testimony pointed out that the persecution of the Rohingya is not a crisis that began last year when the media reports of violence began to increase. In fact, the state-sponsored violence spans over 4 decades, during which the Rohingya have been persecuted relentlessly by the Burmese military and government. Mr. Arkhine discussed the systematic oppression of the Rohingya since 1978. Illustrating that the state has continuously adopted measures to oust the Rohingya from Myanmar. I also want to repeat what Mr. Arkhine said of members of his family who are caught up in the conflict. They live in a village around the border of Butundong and Ratundong. He has one sister and some nieces and nephews to whom he speaks with every night. The last time he called them, they said, and I quote, "Uncle, if we do not die, if we do not get killed by the army or their attacks, then we will die here without food." Madam Speaker, this is a dire situation. These individuals are not just in danger of losing their lives to brutal military attacks, they are unable to access food and humanitarian aid, which is needed for their survival. Only last week, a boat carrying International Committee of the Red Cross supplies was blocked by a mob who threw patrol bombs at the boat. Other testimonies were heard from Mr. Matthew Smith of the human rights organization called 40 Rights. Mr. Smith is based out of Southeast Asia and works in Myanmar, including Rakhine State. According to Mr. Smith, hundreds of thousands have been displaced since August 25th. Rohingya men and women and aid workers are currently trapped in villages. Few of them are fighting with the Rakhine Rohingya Salvation Army, also known as Al-Yakin. Myanmar army soldiers have been reported to have shot, killed men, women, and children of all ages, to have administered fatal knife wounds, and to have burnt victims alive. In addition, Myanmar's military forces continue to use anti-personnel landmines along the borders with Bangladesh, as cited in a press release by the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. These weapons are harming and killing civilians fleeing their homes in Myanmar in an effort to find safety in Bangladesh. Eyewitnesses, testimonies, photographic evidence, and multiple reports show that anti-personnel mines have been laid between Myanmar's two major land crossings with Bangladesh, resulting in casualties among Rohingya refugees fleeing government attacks on their homes. Madam Speaker, I support the international campaign to ban landmines in condemning the use of anti-personnel landmines by Myanmar's armed forces. Madam Speaker, there are a bunch of headlines that I wish to share with you. Who will help the Myanmar Rohingyas? From BBC. Myanmar Rohingya refugees' future unclear as Bangladesh registers flood of arrivals. Rohingya in Bangladesh need massive assistance. From the Al Jazeera. Rohingya crisis, a month of misery in Myanmar, Rakhine, Al Jazeera. Madam Speaker, these headlines are just a glimpse into the atrocities being committed against the Rohingya in Myanmar. As the Prime Minister has said in his open letter to Aung San Suu Kyi, the responsibilities of resolving the crisis fall squarely upon Aung San Suu Kyi and the military leadership of Myanmar, including Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, Commander-in-Chief of Myanmar's armed forces. Madam Speaker, we continue to support the Rohingya people. In 2015-2016, Canada provided a total of $27.47 million in Canadian official development assistance to Myanmar through reputable third-party groups such as the Joint Peace Fund. This included $4.3 million in humanitarian assistance funding to the immediate needs of the conflict-affected and displaced populations, including Rohingya. To date, in 2017, we have announced $9.18 million in humanitarian assistance to the region addressing this crisis. Despite these funding efforts, Madam Speaker, we need to do more to address the horrific campaign of violence, rape, and murder being carried out by the Myanmar government. Echoing the concerns of the international community and my own constituents of Kitchener South Hespeler, we must call upon the Myanmar security forces and end violence and hold all perpetrators of human rights violations accountable on the basis of independent and impartial investigation. Call upon the Myanmar government to affirm the right of the Rohingya to return to their homes and to live in peace and security. Encourage and support the Myanmar government to commit to finding meaningful and lasting solutions to issues in the Rakhine State. Madam Speaker, I want to end by reiterating that the civilians and military leadership in Myanmar must stop the horror to which they are subjecting the Rohingya. Before the world's eyes, before our eyes, multiple acts of ethnic cleansing are taking place. We cannot stand by and watch Myanmar security forces violently push the Rohingya out of Myanmar. As Canadians, We pride ourselves on our history of international peacekeeping in support of human rights. The plight of the Rohingya people should not go unnoticed and unanswered. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments?